have two salaries. One is from being Grant's executive assistant during the day. It's $1 million a year, and it works me like a dog. The other is from warming his bed at night as his pet canary. It's priceless per hour, and it's absolutely incredible. He's handsome, amazing in bed, and loaded. I was completely satisfied. But lately, Mr. Grant has been acting strange. He leaves me on read. He ignores my calls. He'll just disappear for 3 or 4 days at a time without a word. But one day, he came home early, full of a frantic energy, like he was trying to break the bed. Just as I was starting to enjoy it, he dropped the bomb. This thing we have, this affair that can't see the light of day. It needs to end. He didn't stop moving when he said it. In fact, he got rougher. Boom. It felt like my head had been smashed with a sledgehammer. End? And what? How? Who the hell said you could end it? The dazed pleasure on my face froze instantly. My blood went from a boil to ice in a heartbeat. The expensive king-sized bed finally gave out under the force of his violent announcement, letting out one last, piercing groan. Crack. Crash. The bed had actually collapsed. He and I were tangled in the wreckage in an incredibly awkward yet intimate position. The world went silent for a second. I was lying on the cold floor, my back aching from the impact. His scorching body was on top of me. The air was thick with the sweet smell of sex and the sharp scent of splintered wood. It was absurd. It was pathetic. Grant seemed stunned, too, probably not expecting his ending to be quite so dramatic. He pushed himself up, wincing as he shook an arm he'd banged on the wood. Without even looking at me, he tried to climb out of the pile of debris. Just as he got up and reached for his scattered pants, a stiff little card slipped out of his back pocket. It floated down, tumbling end over end, and landed perfectly right on my chest, which was still flushed and marked from our encounter. The cool touch of it made me flinch. Instinctively, I looked down. It was a photograph. The background was a sun-drenched beach, with a brilliant blue sky and pristine white sand. One of the men in the photo was Grant, the same Grant who had just announced our ending and was now frowning in irritation. But he was smiling, in a way I had never seen before. It wasn't the lustful, condescending, or dismissive smile he always gave me. It was a smile with no shadows, his eyes literally shining, as if he had just been handed the entire world. A smile of pure, blazing joy. His strong arm was wrapped tightly around the shoulders of the person next to him. That person, dressed in a crisp white shirt, had a gentle, refined smile. His eyes were curved like crescent moons, radiating a light as pure as untouched moonlight. Lucas, the man Grant had kept tucked away in his heart for 10 years, his unobtainable old flame, the one that got away. On the back of the photo, a line of sharp, forceful handwriting stabbed at my eyes. To our reunion. My Lucas, my light. The date was 3 days ago, so that's where he'd been. He'd gone to pick up his light. What was he, a superhero? And now the real thing was back. That meant this knockoff, me, had lost even the last bit of value I had warming his bed, crushed to dust by this brilliant light. The cool spot on my chest instantly became a searing hot brand, the pain making my insides clench. It hurt more than the bed collapsing on top of me. 10 years. Ever since freshman orientation in college, I'd followed him like a shadow. Watching him play basketball, watching him accept awards, watching him hold court with his friends. I brought him water, I washed his socks, I helped him start his business, I took drinks for him at dinners. That humiliating, unspoken crush was my deepest secret. So 3 years ago, when he handed me that demanding assistant contract and hinted at the overtime work at night, I knew it was a pit of despair. But I jumped in anyway. I jumped with a pathetic, sick little thrill. At least I could be close to him, even in the most degrading way possible. For 3 years, I played the part of the perfect assistant and an even more perfect, docile canary. He paid, I performed. Fair trade. I even managed to hypnotize myself into believing that maybe, just maybe, there was a tiny sliver of this twisted affection that was actually for me, Noah. Until now. Until this photograph slapped me across the face, shattering every last self-deceiving fantasy. I wasn't even a knockoff anymore. I was just an eyesore, a piece of trash that needed to be cleaned up. Love? That delusional hope I'd hidden beneath our transaction. The part of me I never dared to examine too closely. It was all burned to ash by that smile and those words. The spot in my chest where my heart was supposed to be was now just empty. It didn't hurt. It was just an empty, chilling void. So cold my fingertips were trembling. Grant finally stood up from the wreckage and pulled on his pants. Only then did he notice the photo on my chest and see my paper-white face and dead eyes. His brow furrowed even deeper, and a flash of annoyance? Or was it the embarrassment of being caught? He bent down and snatched the photo away with a rough jerk. You've always been about the money, so I'll give you 10 million. Lucas is a simple, innocent person. From now on, you'll stay out of his way when he's here. If he's not, you can still live here. Just don't let him know about us. It would disgust him. His voice was hard, laced with post-sex raspiness and impatience as he stuffed the photo back into his pocket. He pulled a checkbook from his jacket, scribbled a few lines, and tore out the page. That flimsy piece of paper, like a coin tossed to a beggar, was dropped onto my bare stomach, which was still covered in dust and sweat. The number on the check was impressive. $10 million. A buyout for 3 years. A buyout for my decade-long crush that I'd flushed down the drain. A cleanup fee for this piece of trash. So generous of you, Mr. Grant. Disgusting? Fucking hell. I wonder who was sweating and groaning in pleasure just a minute ago? I looked at the check, then raised my eyes to him. He stood by the ruins of our bed, perfectly dressed again, looking every bit the cold, aristocratic CEO he was during the day. The passion from moments ago and his icy "it's over" felt like nothing but a bizarre dream. Only the broken bed on the floor and the glaring check on my naked body proved any of it had happened. I suddenly felt the corner of my mouth twitch. It wasn't a smile. It was the calm that comes when your heart has completely died. Slowly, I pushed my aching body up from the cold floor. I didn't care how pathetic I looked, and I didn't reach for the check. Right in front of him, I very deliberately picked up my scattered clothes and put them on, one by one. My movements were steady, my fingers not trembling in the slightest. I buttoned the last button on my shirt, covering every trace of our intimacy. Only then did I bend down and, with 2 fingers, pluck the check from the dust. I flicked at a non-existent speck of dust on it and looked up at Grant, who was frowning, seemingly surprised by my calm reaction. Mr. Grant, I've served you day and night for 3 years. This is what I've earned. So I won't be thanking you. My voice was as flat and smooth as a frozen lake, without a single ripple. His brow relaxed slightly, probably thinking I knew my place. I looked right at him and clearly delivered the rest of my sentence. But this isn't over because you say it is. It's over because I, Noah, am done with you. Grant, your game is over. Now it's my turn to be the dealer. Done with me? Noah, stop making a scene. I told you you can still live here when Lucas isn't around. If he's coming over, I'll call you. You just need to stay away. I didn't say anything. It was just too disgusting. Jesus Christ. It was so disgusting it almost made me sick enough to puke. The morning after he slammed the door and left the apartment, I took that flimsy, yet incredibly heavy, piece of paper to the bank. $10 million, all transferred into my personal account. When the notification alert chimed, I stared at the long string of zeros on my phone screen. That empty place in my heart felt like it had been filled with something hard and cold by those numbers. Money really is a wonderful thing. As for men, the world is full of them. I can always find another. During the day, I was still Noah, the executive assistant at Grant Industries with $1 million salary. That scumbag wasn't going to stop me from making a living. You can be at odds with anything in the world, but not with money. But now the lines had to be drawn. His schedule, emailed to him. His mood, not my fucking problem. Work reports, finished in 3 sentences or less. Grant's expression grew darker by the day. Several times, he looked like he wanted to say something, his gaze landing on me with a complicated mix of curiosity and an unreadable frustration. He was probably used to my previous submissiveness and fawning, and my new, strictly business attitude was throwing him off. Without me there to pick out his clothes every morning, he'd even started mismatching his ties and suits. People in the office started whispering, wondering if Mr. Grant had broken up with his boyfriend. I pretended not to see or hear any of it. This afternoon, Grant had an important international video conference. I went to his office to drop off the final meeting materials. The second I pushed open the door, I was hit with the elegant aroma of fine tea. Lucas was here. He was sitting comfortably on the guest sofa, holding a teacup. Grant was sitting across from him, leaning in close, the two of them whispering about something. The atmosphere was so sweet you could bottle it. The relaxed, almost smiling expression on Grant's face was something I hadn't seen in 3 years. That hard place in my chest was pricked by something sharp. It didn't hurt. It was just a little cold. The man I couldn't warm up in 10 years of trying. Lucas did nothing, and he was smiling brighter than the sun. Mr. Grant, the meeting materials. I placed the folder on his desk, my voice perfectly steady, my eyes not even glancing toward the seating area. Grant grunted, not looking up. His eyes were still on Lucas, his tone gentle. Lucas, that restaurant you mentioned, I'll have my assistant book a table. Lucas smiled warmly. Okay. His gaze, however, swept over me, a subtle, condescending assessment. I turned to leave, not wanting to stay a second longer. The air in here felt contaminated. But I just reached the door. Behind me, I heard Lucas's short cry, followed by the jarring sound of shattering porcelain. I instinctively turned back. Lucas had accidentally knocked over the cup of scalding hot tea in front of him. The liquid splashed all over him, instantly soaking the front of his expensive suit and steaming in the air. The teacup lay in pieces on the floor. Lucas, are you burned? Let me see. Grant's face changed in an instant. He shot up from his seat and rushed over, his voice strained. Lucas put on a pained expression, his face pale and his eyes instantly welling up with tears. His voice was choked with accusation. Grant, it's so hot, but it's not Noah's fault. He definitely didn't mean to slam the door into my arm when he was leaving. Fucking hell. That scheming little snake. This is the kind of person Grant likes? He's blaming me? I was 10 feet away from him at the door. Am I Stretch Armstrong? I can hit him just by opening a door? I started to turn away, but Grant's head snapped up to look at me. His eyes, which a second ago were full of heart-wrenching concern for Lucas, turned to me and became chips of venomous ice. They blazed with fury, undisguised hatred, and a kind of I-knew-it contempt. He didn't hesitate for even half a second. He didn't ask, is that true? He didn't check the trajectory of the broken pieces on the floor to see if it even made sense. In his mind, Lucas's word was gospel, and I was just the lowlife, acting out of vicious jealousy. Noah, you worthless piece of trash who slept your way to the top. How dare you hurt Lucas? Grant spat my name out through clenched teeth, each syllable a storm. I almost wanted to laugh, but I figured it wasn't the right time, so I held it in. I didn't feel like explaining anything either. I just looked at Grant and said nothing. Right on cue, Lucas let out a more pathetic sob, adding fuel to the fire. The look in Grant's eyes was one of pure disgust, as if he were looking at a pile of reeking garbage. The next second, right in front of me, right in front of the still sobbing Lucas, he yanked out his phone and dialed the HR director. Mr. Davis, draw up a termination notice. Fire Noah. Effective immediately. Announce it to the entire company. Reason. He let out a cold laugh, his gaze cutting into me like a knife. Unbecoming conduct and intentional harm to an important company guest. Tell him to pack his shit and get out. Fine, I'll go. Grant, I'm really done with you. 10 years of a secret crush, flushed down the drain. 3 years as a canary, deemed worthless. My career as $1 million executive assistant, ending with a public expulsion for unbecoming conduct and viciousness. The whole company was laughing at me, and I was the biggest joke of all. Who else can I blame? I was the blind one who fell for Grant. I didn't have much to pack. A mug, a few professional books, and a personal flash drive. I quickly packed them into a simple cardboard box. I hugged that light box to my chest and turned around. Grant, we're really over. We're all thinking adults. There's no way a business shark like Grant couldn't see through Lucas's flimsy, transparent act. But even knowing Lucas did it on purpose, Grant still fired me. As I was walking out of the building, I got a text. I thought it would be a taunting message from Lucas. That's how it always goes in those cheesy soap operas. But when I pulled out my phone, I saw it was from Grant. Lucas isn't coming to my place tonight. You can go back. For dinner, I want grilled fish, seafood congee, and a cucumber salad. And tonight, I can go a little harder. Don't be mad at Lucas. You'll scare him. When did Grant lose his mind? How desperate was I back then? How could I stomach any of this? Cold rain streamed down the fabric of his expensive suit, but Grant didn't seem to notice. He stood in the downpour, watching the taxi carrying Noah disappear completely into the curtain of rain. The red taillights vanished like extinguished drops of blood. The nameless fire in his chest burned hotter and hotter, threatening to burst through his ribs. He actually left? Why didn't he beg? Whenever Grant got mad before, Noah would always beg him not to be angry. Lucas had been upset, and Grant had just lost control and fired him. But if Noah had just begged, Grant would have let him stay. Why didn't he beg? He just clutched that pathetic little box and walked straight out into the storm without a single look back. Who the hell did he think he was? A cheap plaything bought and paid for, fired with his own hands. What right did he have to be so defiant? Mr. Grant, the rain's getting heavy. Why don't you get in the car? The driver asked, holding an umbrella tentatively. He didn't dare breathe too loudly, seeing the terrifyingly dark look on Grant's face. Grant snapped back to reality. His eyes, dark and sinister, swept over the direction Noah had disappeared. His chest heaved violently. He shoved away the umbrella the driver offered, got into the back of the Rolls-Royce dripping wet and radiating fury, and slammed the door. Back to the apartment. His voice was bone-chillingly cold. The driver didn't dare ask questions and started the car immediately. The ride was dead silent, the pressure in the car so low it could freeze hell over. Grant stared out the window at the blurry, distorted cityscape rushing past, but his mind was stuck on a loop, replaying the scene in his office. Noah's calm, almost dead-eyed stare, the resolute way he had acted, and those cold words, "Grant, I'm done with you," echoed in his head like a curse. Really done with you? Ha! He slammed his fist into the expensive leather seat with a dull thud. The driver jumped. What right did he have to be done with him? What right did he have to say no? Everything Noah had was given to him by Grant. His job, his apartment, his money, even Noah himself. What right did he have to say no? Rage wrapped around him like a poisonous vine. He needed an outlet, a place to prove that Noah's "I'm done" was just a ridiculous, pathetic attempt to play hard to get. The car finally pulled into the underground garage of the luxury apartment building. Grant didn't wait for the driver to open his door. He threw it open himself and, still soaked and seething, strode toward the private elevator. Fingerprint scan, straight to the penthouse. Beep. The doors opened. He wasn't met with the familiar warmth that might carry the faint scent of Noah's body wash. He was met with a cold, empty, dead silence. Grant froze in the entryway. All the lights in the apartment were off. Through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lights were blurred and smeared by the rain, casting a hazy, cold, grayish-blue glow that barely illuminated the lavish but terrifyingly empty living room. It was too quiet. So quiet he could hear his own ragged breathing and the tick-tock of the priceless European clock on the wall, each second's movement sharp enough to make his heart pound. Before, whenever Noah was here, no matter how late Grant came home, a warm lamp would always be left on in the living room. The kitchen might have a pot of hangover soup or stomach-soothing porridge warming for him. The air would be filled with the comforting, lived-in scent of home. But now, there was nothing. Only cold air and a deathly silence. A strange sense of agitation and unease, like a cold snake, silently coiled around Grant's heart. He roughly tore off his soaked suit jacket and threw it onto the floor with a dull thud. The sound was jarring in the silence, only highlighting the emptiness of the space. Barefoot, he walked across the cold marble floor into the living room. His eyes scanned the room. The coffee table was bare. It used to have a bowl of fruit he'd washed or a few financial magazines. The open-plan kitchen, the stove was cold, spotless. He used to love bustling around in there, the aroma of his soups filling the entire apartment. The sofa, his gaze fell on the massive, expensive leather sofa. That was where Noah used to curl up while waiting for him to come home, and where they had tangled together countless times. It felt like the sofa still held the warmth of his body, his scent. No, wait. Grant's eyes sharpened. Noah had to be playing a game. He couldn't have left. He was just hiding. Almost stumbling, he charged toward the master bedroom. Bang! He kicked the bedroom door open. Noah, get your ass out here, he roared, his voice echoing in the empty room, carrying a hint of panic that even he didn't recognize. The bedroom was pitch black. He slammed his hand on the light switch. Blinding white light instantly flooded the space. The collapsed bed was still there, but everything that belonged to Noah was gone. Grant's heart sank like a stone. He rushed to the enormous walk-in closet and yanked the doors open. Noah's side of the closet was empty. Not a single thing left. Not even a hanger. Only his own expensive suits, shirts, and ties hung there neatly, like cold, silent mockeries. A wave of panic, like an icy tide, instantly washed over his ankles. He frantically pulled open the drawers. The necklaces, bracelets, and rings he'd casually tossed his way as gifts, all gone. The drawer for his underwear, empty. He had taken every last trace of himself with him. Damn it. He had texted Noah. He had told him he could still stay here as long as Lucas wasn't around. Why would he move all his stuff out? He was really gone. That realization hit Grant like a sledgehammer. It struck him so hard his vision went black. An unprecedented, immense panic, like a giant, icy hand, seized his heart. It was 100 times worse than the anger he'd felt before. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers trembling with so much force he could barely control them. He found the number he knew by heart, Noah's personal cell, almost by muscle memory alone. He hit dial. He pressed the phone to his ear, holding his breath, his heart hammering against his ribs with a desperate hope he didn't even recognize in himself. Beep, 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 a busy signal. A cold, steady busy signal. It was like a bucket of ice water poured over his head. He wouldn't give up. He hung up and dialed again. Beep, 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 still a busy signal. Once, twice, 3 times, each time that same cold, piercing tone. Noah was really done with him? He wouldn't even answer his calls? But he loved him so much. He had been secretly watching him since college. He was willing to sign that kind of contract just to stay by his side. Willing to be a stand-in. How could he possibly be driven away like this? He was supposed to be a leech, a piece of gum on my shoe I couldn't get rid of. 3 years is a long time. Long enough to completely format the name Grant from my life, without even leaving it in the recycling bin. Now, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Wilder Capital, Mr. Scott. My salary? The numbers look pretty good. My boss? He looks even better. Jason Wilder, the infamous devil of the NYC elite, is also my new benefactor, or maybe partner. After all, he provides the capital and I provide the brains. It's a win-win. Right now, in one of New York's most exclusive boardrooms, the air is frozen solid. Across the long table, Grant is staring daggers at me. His gaze is like a poisoned hook, desperate to tear me away from Jason's side. He's changed. The lines on his forehead are deeper, and his eyes are clouded with a permanent, restless fury. The arrogance of a man who once controlled everything is now shrouded in a haze of anxious gloom. TSK. Looks like Mr. Grant hasn't been sleeping well these past 3 years. How strange. Did his precious white moonlight, Lucas, not warm his bed for him? Mr. Grant, your firm's valuation of Star Tech is inflated by 125%. Based on Wilder's due diligence model and factoring in market depreciation, the reasonable range is here. My finger slides across my tablet, and a stream of data projects onto the large screen. My voice is as cool and detached as a machine as I state a number that is precise to the point of being cruel. Grant's face instantly turns ashen. His fists clenched so tight his knuckles are white. He's not looking at the data I'm presenting. He's looking at my hand, specifically the simple platinum band on my ring finger. A gift from Jason. He said to wear it to keep any Tom, Dick, or Harry from getting ideas about his person. Grant's eyes look like they're about to pop out of his head. Noah, you disappeared for 3 years. Do you have any idea? Didn't you say you loved me to death? That you were gay for me? What the hell is this now? He slams his hands on the table and shoots to his feet, the legs of his chair scraping hideously against the floor. The entire conference room falls silent. Grant's team doesn't dare to breathe. My team at Wilder just frowns at the madman. I can't even be bothered to lift my eyes, my finger continuing to glide over the tablet. Grant, like a rabid dog, points at Jason and roars at me. Noah, you've really hit the big time. You think just because you climbed into Jason Wilder's bed, you can act like you're better than me? Did you forget how you used to kneel and beg me? Grant, Jason speaks. His voice isn't loud, it's almost lazy. But the temperature in the room instantly drops 10 degrees. It feels like invisible blades of ice are hanging over everyone's head. He hasn't changed his posture, still leaning back casually in his chair. But when he raises those handsome, phoenix-like eyes to look at Grant, they are nothing but a frozen wasteland. Keep your mouth clean. My person isn't someone you get to bark at. Jason's finger taps lightly on the tabletop. The soft sound lands like a sledgehammer on everyone's nerves. He turns his head to look at me. That look, the ice melts, instantly shifting to a focused tenderness that no one else would ever see. Then, under Grant's furious, disbelieving gaze, Jason's well-defined hand, wearing a matching platinum ring, moves with absolute naturalness and total possession to wrap around my waist. Through the thin fabric of my suit, the warmth of his palm seeps through, powerful and reassuring. Let go of him, Grant, like a provoked beast, his eyes bloodshot, charges forward without a second thought. He knocks over his chair and overturns the coffee on the table. The brown liquid splashes across the floor, soaking the cuff of his expensive pants. He tries to grab my hand. Jason's reaction is lightning fast. The arm around my waist tightens, pulling me securely behind him. At the same time, his other hand shoots out like an iron clamp, precisely and viciously grabbing Grant's outstretched wrist. Crack! A sickening, bone-jarring crunch. Ack! Grant lets out a pained grunt, his face instantly turning a ghastly white as cold sweat beads on his forehead. Jason's eyes are as cold as the Siberian tundra, his voice laced with ice. Try to lay a hand on him again, and I'll chop it off for you. Grant is trembling from the pain, sweat pouring down his face. He looks at me, his eyes filled with a storm of agony, despair, and disbelief. I calmly smooth out the sleeve that Jason's arm had wrinkled. The glint of the platinum ring seems to magnify endlessly in Grant's bloodshot eyes. Grant's voice is distorted with pain as he snarls. Noah, you're just going to stand there and watch him do this to me? Are you that pathetic? You can't live without a man. Can you? Back when you were in my bed. Enough. This time it's my voice. Not loud. I raise my eyes and look directly at Grant. There's no hatred, no resentment. Just a complete, ice-cold indifference. Mr. Grant, this is a business negotiation, not a psych ward. You're scaring my boyfriend. My voice is clear and calm. Grant's body sways as if he's been struck by an invisible hammer. Boyfriend? Impossible. Jason is the sole heir to the Wilder fortune. You think he'd give up marriage and kids for a man? You're just a toy to him. That's right, just a toy. He's not even gay, he has a fiancée. Noah, he's playing you. Jason's eyes turn dangerously cold. Grant, are you that eager to go bankrupt? I have no desire to share the same space with a lunatic, so I take Jason's hand and lead him out. Behind us, we hear Grant's broken, animalistic roars, and the terrible sound of documents being furiously torn and objects being smashed. Back in Jason's office, he pulls me tighter, pressing my entire body into his embrace. He lowers his head, and his cool lips press firmly against my forehead with an undeniable possessiveness. Osirinkish. My boyfriend's mouth is so sweet, so fragrant. But I don't want to be your boyfriend anymore. My brain felt like it exploded. What Jason said sounded a lot like what Grant had said back then. This affair between us needs to end. I didn't respond. I waited for his next words. But he didn't say anything else. Instead, he kissed me with the force of a hurricane. His hands roughly yanked off my tie and tore at my clothes. I glanced worriedly at the office door. The door. Shoe focus. No one dares to come in. Not only was Jason better looking, but he was also better in bed. I felt like this custom-made desk was about to fall apart. But this time, I couldn't concentrate. I kept thinking, was he going to say it's over after we were done, just like Grant? If he did, I would definitely. But I never expected what Jason said afterward. I don't want to be your boyfriend anymore. I want to be your husband. Will you marry me? We can go abroad, find a country where we can register our marriage. Seeing the serious look on Jason's face, I decided to tease him. If you marry me, what about your fiancé? Jason suddenly thrust harder. His voice was hoarse. You little devil. That fiancé on my social feed. Wasn't that you in a dress in the picture I posted? Huh? My fiancé? This was insane. He was going so hard. I think it wasn't just the desk that was going to collapse, I was going to be broken, too. But even if I broke, it felt so good. Grant had lost his mind. After that fiasco in the boardroom, he completely derailed from his domineering CEO track and went flying off a cliff into an uncontrollable abyss. First came the gifts. Piles of them, stacked up like trash at the Wilder Capital reception desk. Keys to a limited edition sports car. A massive pink diamond the size of a pigeon's egg. Priceless antiques he'd won at auction. The receptionist was so scared her face turned white. She called me, stammering, Mr. Scott. Mr. Grant sent more things. This time it's the property deed to a small private island. I was leaning back in Jason's spacious executive chair, watching him sign documents. I didn't even lift an eyelid. Shred it or donate it. Your call. I heard a sharp inhale on the other end of the line. Jason looked up from his files, an eyebrow raised playfully. Mr. Grant is quite generous. Huh? A private island? Should I buy it and build a doghouse for you on it? I kicked his shin. It's tainted. He chuckled, catching my misbehaving foot and rubbing his thumb sensually over my ankle. His eyes darkened. You think he's tainted? Then, what about me? My ears grew warm and I pulled my foot back. Mr. Wilder, it's business hours. Be serious. It's not like we haven't done it before. Why are you still so shy? As he spoke, he started to move toward me. I jumped up and ran. This man had too much energy. Day after day, he never missed a beat. Sometimes, he even wanted to do it in the office during the day. If this kept up, I didn't think I could handle it. I had to start secretly working out every day just to keep up. When the gift offensive failed, Grant escalated. He started staging chance encounters. I went with Jason to the stables and coincidentally, Grant appeared in full riding gear, his eyes glued to me. He tried to get closer but was blocked by Jason's stone-faced bodyguards. I attended a charity gala, and he passed by with a wine glass, calling my name in a hoarse voice. Jason just wrapped an arm around my waist and walked right past him. Grant's hand clenched his glass so tightly that wine sloshed over the rim like blood. The most ridiculous incident was when I was buying coffee at the convenience store downstairs from my office. I had just pushed the door open to leave when he lunged out of the shadows. He was soaked to the bone, his hair a mess, his eyes sunken. He looked like a homeless man, with none of the polish of the Grant Industries CEO. Noah, let's just talk. 5 minutes. I'm begging you. His voice was shaking uncontrollably, filled with desperate pleading. Rainwater streamed down his pale face, a picture of utter misery. I stopped and looked at him calmly. My umbrella shielded me from the cold rain, and it shielded me from him. Mr. Grant, there's nothing for us to talk about. My voice was colder than the rain. No, there is. There is. I know I was wrong. Noah. I really know I was wrong. I was an asshole. I was blind. Just give me one more chance. A final one. He was so agitated he tried to step forward, earning a wary glare from the convenience store clerk. He was rambling, his eyes wild, as he reached for the edge of my umbrella. I took a step back, avoiding his touch. Did your precious Lucas dump you, so now you remember how good I was to you? I sneered, the curve of my lips ice cold. Grant's body froze, and his face turned a deathly gray. I was just, Lucas saved my life. I just didn't want to see him upset. You were always so understanding, you never cared about these things. I didn't know you would actually leave, you. He let out a pained roar, rain mixing with tears on his face. I regret it. I really regret it. Without you, I feel like I'm dying. His voice was choked with sobs, carrying a desperate, near-death anguish. If this had been the foolish, love-struck Noah from 3 years ago, I might have felt a pang of pity. Unfortunately, he had personally killed that Noah. Grant, whether you live or die has nothing to do with me. My voice was flat and emotionless. With that, I turned to leave, not bothering to watch his expression crumble. I walked straight into a solid chest. Noah, why are you being so naughty? Standing in the rain for a stray dog? If you get sick, I'm going to be very angry. I looked up, dazed, into Jason's face. Seeing his faint, unsmiling expression, a shiver of fear went down my spine. This man was the king of jealousy. When he got angry, his creative punishments in bed could kill a person. It looked like tonight was going to be another sleepless night. Grant tried to come closer but was blocked by Jason's bodyguards. I thought Grant would finally give up, but I had underestimated the extent of his madness. He found my new address, a top-tier, Riverview luxury condo owned by Jason, with intense security. He couldn't get in, so he started waiting downstairs, like a ghost. On a late autumn night, the cold rain was biting. I stood at the massive floor-to-ceiling window holding a mug of warm milk, looking down. Under the dim yellow streetlights, Grant was just standing there, without an umbrella. His expensive suit was completely soaked, clinging to his body and outlining a much thinner frame. He had his head tilted back, stubbornly staring up at my floor. Rainwater streamed down his pale face. He stood motionless, like a statue of despair. He'd been standing there for 3 hours. Jason wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on the top of my head. His voice was laced with post-shower laziness and a hint of coldness. "He's still there?" "Yeah," I replied, my voice flat. "TSK, an eyesore." Jason let go of me and walked toward the bathroom. A moment later, he came back out holding a giant plastic basin. Inside was warm, slightly steaming water. I raised an eyebrow. Jason's lips curved into a devilish smile, but his eyes glinted with malice. Just cooling him off, helping him clear his head. He walked to the window and opened a small ventilation panel. A blast of cold, rain-laced wind rushed in. Down below, Grant seemed to notice the movement. His head shifted, and a faint glimmer of hope ignited in his hollow, desperate eyes. He stumbled forward a couple of steps, his lips moving silently, as if calling my name. And then, splash! A huge basin of warm water rained down from the sky, poured with perfect accuracy right over Grant's head. Ugh! The sudden baptism sent a shock through Grant's body. He staggered back, miserably wiping the water from his face. It wasn't cold water. It was lukewarm, and it probably wasn't clean. Don't ask me where Jason got it. He always finds a way. Grant froze completely. He looked up in disbelief at the open window, at the blurry but familiar figure of Jason, and at the cold, watching silhouette in his arms, me. The immense humiliation, like that lukewarm water, drowned him in an instant. It was 100 times more bone-chilling than the cold rain. He stood there, soaked in the downpour and the extra special shower, his hair plastered to his forehead, looking like a complete and utter joke. The last shred of his dignity was washed away by that basin of water. He finally broke. Ah! A shriek that barely sounded human, so full of despair it ripped through the rainy night. It was like the last cry of a dying beast. He couldn't hold himself up any longer. His knees buckled, and with a thud, he collapsed heavily into the cold, filthy, muddy water. He propped himself up with his hands, his shoulders shaking violently as he let out choked, guttural sobs, like a broken accordion. Rain, tears, and that basin of special water mixed together, streaming down his pathetic frame. He looked like a stray dog whose spine had been completely shattered. Jason slammed the window shut, cutting off the unpleasant noise in sight. He turned, pulled me into his arms, and rubbed his chin against my hair. His voice held a hint of someone looking for praise. A company can't have a madman for a CEO. Seeing as it's so cold, I think it's time for the Grant family to go bankrupt. What do you think, Noah? I leaned against his warm chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and closed my eyes. Okay. The sound of the rain continued outside, and the broken, desperate sobs from below were faint, but still audible. Atonement? A breakdown? A love that came too late? Heck, Noah's heart was already harder than a diamond. Grant, your funeral pyre, no matter how brightly it burns, will never warm me again. I heard that Lucas went abroad again. Apparently, after Grant went bankrupt, he started working as a delivery driver. Lucas was disgusted by Grant, so he left a note and ran off. The note said, "The person who saved you from the river back in senior year was Noah. He almost died trying to save you. I saw your family had money, so I pretended it was me. I never thought you'd be so stupid." Grant completely lost it. He locked himself in his tiny rental apartment, day after day. By the time I heard this news, I was already getting married to Jason overseas. Jason chose a very romantic city. His parents came, too. They didn't try to stop our wedding. In fact, they gave us their blessing. The night before we left the country, Jason's mom pulled me aside quietly and said, "Noah, honey, Jason is a very obsessive, intense, and cold person. He has trouble with his emotions. Thank God you came along. Otherwise, we would have died without ever seeing him get married." I asked her nervously, "Ma'am, I'm a man. I can't have children. Are you really okay with that?" Jason's mom just laughed. "Noah, honey, life is short. If you have to please someone on this journey, that person should be yourself. A happy life is a worthy life." She was right. Life is short, so why shouldn't I live it happily on my own terms? Why worry about this and that? Just being alive is hard enough. From now on, I'm gonna live a good life with Jason. Bonus chapter: Jason's POV. The man in my arms breathes evenly, sleeping without a guard up. His usually sharp profile is softened by the warm light, his long lashes casting a fragile shadow. Noah, my light, my prisoner, the obsession I captured using every trick in the book. My fingers unconsciously toy with a cool strand of his hair, feeling its fine texture. Only in these moments does he let down the icy armor he forged in the business world, nesting in my arms like an exhausted bird that has finally found a safe harbor. This docile illusion is something I bought with countless sleepless nights of scheming and one massive gamble. But no one knows that long before I became the calm, calculating hunter, I was already a prisoner trapped in his light. I saw him for the first time at some mind-numbingly boring charity gala hosted by Grant Industries. As the Wilder family representative, I was swirling the wine in my glass, bored out of my skull, watching the fake pleasantries of the rich and powerful. And then I saw him, Grant's executive assistant, Noah. He was wearing a well-tailored black suit, standing quietly in the shadows of a corner, like a silent piece of the background. Grant was holding court, his arms slung familiarly around that so-called white moonlight, Lucas. And him, Noah, just stood there with his eyes slightly lowered, holding a glass of champagne he'd barely touched. The light danced on his downcast lashes, casting a small, dense shadow that hid whatever emotions were in his eyes. Only the thin, pale line of his tightly pressed lips betrayed a hint of fiercely suppressed tension. He was like a sharp blade sheathed, its brilliance hidden, yet possessing a fatal attraction. In that moment, time seemed to stop. The surrounding noise faded away, and my world narrowed to that single, slender figure and the aura of brokenness and defiance that surrounded him. My heart felt like it had been viciously squeezed by something. A strange, unexpected jolt. He looked up. He must have felt my gaze. Those eyes met mine, clear, calm, like black obsidian submerged in a cold spring, carrying a barely perceptible vigilance and a bottomless exhaustion. Just one glance. He quickly lowered his gaze again, resuming his mask of the perfect assistant. But that one look was seared into my heart like a red-hot brand. Later, as if possessed, I had someone investigate him. The file came back quickly. Noah Scott, Grant's assistant, and canary. The word canary, like a poisoned needle, stabbed me right in the eyes. A violent rage shot through me. That rabid dog. Grant. How dare he? Who the hell was he to lock up someone like this and treat him like a plaything? I wanted to storm into Grant Industries right then and there and drag him out of that cesspool. But my reason held me back. The heir to the Wilder fortune, the prince of NYC's elite, making a scene over someone else's canary? Absurd. Of course, I wasn't afraid of being absurd. I was mainly afraid that if I charged in like that, Noah would be scared of me. I found myself becoming obsessed. I started unconsciously following news about Grant Industries, just to catch a fleeting glimpse of his profile in some corner of the financial news. I had people watch him. I learned how hard he worked, how quiet he was in private, how he looked at Grant with that faint, pathetic glimmer of light in his eyes. That little bit of light was like a tiny needle, pricking my heart day and night. Jealousy. That was the first time in my life Jason Wilder, had ever tasted an emotion so foreign and overwhelming. It grew like a poisonous vine, wrapping around my heart and squeezing until I could barely breathe. I was jealous that Grant could have him. I was jealous that Grant was the one he looked at that way, even if that gaze was as humble as dust. I was going mad with jealousy. So many nights, I stood at my floor-to-ceiling windows, looking down at the city lights of New York, my mind filled with nothing but his face, his lowered lashes, his pressed lips, his lonely figure in the shadows. I imagined how Grant possessed him, and how he mistreated him. I imagined what it would be like to lock him by my side instead. Once that thought took root, it became a wildfire I could no longer extinguish. I wanted him, not just his body. I wanted that light in his eyes to shine completely and solely on me. Perhaps fate took pity on me. That lunatic Grant actually threw Noah out for Lucas. I began to set my plan in motion. I bought the rundown building Noah was renting in and kept his rent low to keep him there. I manipulated Sparkfire Inc. into offering him a position, giving him a safe haven where he could use his talents. Like a dark voyeur, I passed him information through encrypted channels, watching him seize opportunities, watching him shed his humility bit by bit, watching him rise from the ashes and grow a dazzling light of his own. I even stooped to seduction. Every morning, I'd put on workout clothes and go for a run, timing it perfectly to coincidentally meet him as he was leaving for work, then chat with him about things he was passionate about. Every time I received one of his precise strategic reports, every time I saw news of him leading Sparkfire to another victory, my blood burned with excitement. See, that's the man I chose. He was always meant to shine this brightly, but with it came a deeper anxiety and fear. I was afraid he wouldn't climb high enough to break free from Grant's chains. I was even more afraid he'd climb too high, his light becoming too brilliant, attracting more covetous gazes. I was afraid he would never see me, waiting for him outside the shadows. I was like a beast trapped in a cage of desire, scorched by the light named Noah, tormented day and night. The urge to make him mine was driving me insane. Until that rainy night, when my car was cut off by Grant's Maybach, when I watched that bastard shove him out of the car like a piece of trash, when I saw him fall into the filthy puddle and heard Grant's vicious insults, the cage of my reason shattered. To hell with strategy. To hell with waiting. In that moment, I just wanted to kill someone. I wanted to personally crush Grant's throat. I wanted to rush out there and pull that young man, wiping his face in the rain, his eyes as defiant as a lone wolf's, into my arms and never let go. But I held back. The last shred of the hunter's calm screamed at me. Not now. He needs dignity, he needs power, not another benefactor taking advantage of him. So, I sat in my warm car, separated by the cold window and the pouring rain, and watched him struggle to his feet in the mud. I watched his straight, unbending spine. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an icy hand, the pain suffocating. Investigate him. Everything, especially his history with Grant. My voice was hoarse and cold, a tone I didn't even recognize as my own. This time, the hunt was no longer just for sport. It was a rescue. It was a conquest. It was the nearly pathological possessiveness I had suppressed for so long, finally finding its outlet. Everything that followed seemed like a carefully woven net of my design and his clear-eyed choice. Only I knew that when he turned to look at me in that Sparkfire office, his eyes surprised but unflinching, it took every ounce of my willpower not to press him against that large desk and kiss him senseless. When he extended his hand and said, "A pleasure to partner with you, Mr. Wilder," I took that cool hand, and the sensation almost made my soul tremble. The prey had finally entered the cage. But it was far from enough. I wanted the light in his eyes to shine only for me. I wanted all his vulnerability and dependence to be shown only to me. I wanted him, body and soul, to be branded with the name Jason Wilder. So, I personally put that platinum ring on his finger. Encircling his ring finger was like encircling my property. Watching him calmly wear it into the boardroom, watching Grant's subsequent breakdown, that feeling was more exhilarating than signing a billion-dollar deal. The basin of water on that rainy night was a warning and a declaration. As Grant knelt in the mud, screaming in despair, I stood at the warm window with Noah in my arms, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. See, this is what happens when you dare to touch his light. Now, in the tranquility of the Swiss Alps, he sleeps peacefully in my arms. The fireplace glows warmly, but the coolness of his fingertips still makes my heart clench. My fingers gently trace the cold band of his ring, then move slowly up to his soft lips, the calloused pads of my fingers feeling their warmth. The sleeping man seems to sense it, unconsciously nuzzling my palm and letting out a soft, cat-like whimper. An intense, all-consuming desire instantly surges through me. I want to kiss him awake. I want to see his sleepy, unfocused eyes reflect only my shadow. I want to hear his broken sobs ring out only for me. I want to devour him in this isolated, snowy paradise, to merge him into my very bones, so he can never, ever escape. I abruptly tighten my arms, locking him deeper into my embrace, the force almost enough to crush him. I rest my chin on his soft hair, deeply inhaling his crisp, clean scent, trying to tame the roaring beast in my heart. It's not enough. It's still not enough. Even with his body in my arms, what about his heart? That heart, shattered by Grant and then wrapped in layers of revenge and power by me? Is there even a tiny crack that's open for me? The firelight flickers, illuminating his peaceful face and revealing the insatiable greed hidden in my own eyes, along with a sliver of fear I won't even admit to myself. I captured the light, only to become the light's prisoner. Noah, do you have any idea? The cage that traps you is also my abyss.